Chapter 15. Breaking the Chains. The air inside the Moonfall Tower was thick with tension and the faint scent of ozone, a residue of the arcane energies they had just disrupted. The glow from the fading runes cast an eerie light across the worn stone walls, flickering like dying embers against the encroaching dark. Kaelin crouched low beside the complex lock mechanism embedded in the heavy iron door. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, tracing the arcane symbols in a fluid, determined rhythm. Tarn stood close by, his eyes narrowed but watchful, ready to intervene with brute force if the delicate process faltered. The tower's descent had slowed noticeably, a subtle but unmistakable change that rippled through the very bones of the structure. "Almost there," Kaelin murmured, the sharp edge of her voice betraying the exhaustion beneath her determined exterior. The lock responded to her touch. A faint hum grew louder, a soft vibration that ran through the metal and stone, a pulse of fading magic surrendering its grip. Tarn grunted, his broad shoulders tense as he adjusted his stance. "We don't have much time. Dawn's coming faster than I like." Kaelin nodded, her dark eyes flicking to the narrow shaft of pale light seeping through the cracks in the stone. Every second counted now. The memory reset loomed like a specter, threatening to wipe away not just their plans, but their very selves. Nearby, Lysa knelt beside Jorah, who sat battered and bruised against the cold wall. Her hands glowed softly, a warm golden light pulsing from her palms as she channeled her healing energy. The scent of crushed herbs she had gathered from forgotten corners of the tower mingled with the cold, stale air, offering a small comfort in this desolate place. "Hold still," Lysa whispered, gently, her voice a balm against the harshness of their existence. Jorah's weathered face was tight with pain, but he managed a faint nod. "Thank you, Lysa. I owe you more than I can say." Across the chamber, Merrick stood isolated but alert, his pale figure bathed in the flickering, shifting illusions he conjured to mask their movements from unseen watchers. The green gleam of his eyes was sharp despite the weariness etched into his features. He whispered to the shadows, his voice trembling yet resolute. "We're closer now. Just a few more steps." His illusions danced around him, ghostly figures, shimmering lights, both a shield and a reminder of the fractured mind he fought to hold together. But tonight there was clarity in his madness, a fragile hope that had begun to root. The heavy iron door before them groaned as Tarn set to work on the mechanical lock beneath Kaelin's arcane disarmament. His rugged hands worked with skill born of years of survival, twisting and adjusting ancient gears with a quiet determination. "Almost free," muttered Tarn, sweat beading on his furrowed brow despite the chill. Kaelin glanced at her comrades, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of magic and the first hints of dawn beyond the tower's narrowing windows. Scars and bruises marked their bodies, but their eyes burned with an unyielding fire. "We break these chains tonight," Kaelin said, her voice low but firm, "no matter what comes after." The grinding of metal echoed like a heartbeat through the chamber, a steady rhythm that matched the pounding in their chests. Outside, the tower's descent slowed further, the oppressive rush giving way to a tentative stillness. But the threat remained. Dawn's light would soon erase what little memories they had left. With a final click, the lock disengaged, the door creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway bathed in soft, ethereal light. Beyond lay the unknown, freedom perhaps, or something even darker. But the choice was theirs. Kaelin led the way, her steps sure despite the weight of uncertainty. Behind her, Jorah, Merrick, Lysa, and Tarn followed, their breaths steadying with each forward movement. They were battered, scarred, but unbroken.
"We move fast," Jorah whispered, his voice steady but urgent. "Before the reset." Merrick nodded, the illusions around him flickering in response to his resolve. Lysa glanced back, offering a small, hopeful smile. "Together," she said simply. And in that moment, as the first light of dawn crept closer, the crew of the Moonfall Tower took the first true step toward breaking their chains, physical and mental alike, and reclaiming their stolen identities. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and sacrifice, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, hope burned bright. The tower no longer held them captive. Now it was their prison to escape. As the ancient mechanics quieted and the oppressive magic waned, Kaelin whispered to herself, "We're not just escaping the tower, we're escaping the past." And with that, they stepped forward into the unknown, the weight of their scars a testament to their resilience, the promise of dawn a fragile beacon of freedom. But freedom always comes at a price, one they would soon have to pay.
Chapter 16. The Warden's Fall. The chamber thrummed with a pulse not unlike a heartbeat, though cold and mechanical, echoing through the vast, arcane core of Moonfall Tower. The swirling energies cast eerie shadows across the towering walls, their surfaces alive with shifting runes and flickering light. At the center stood the Warden, a figure both imposing and tragic, cloaked in darkness that seemed to absorb the very light around him. His face was a shifting mask of indistinct features, eyes flickering with a turbulent storm of emotions, rage, sorrow, fear. Kaelin stepped forward, her lean frame silhouetted against the glowing core, dark hair pulled back to reveal the sharp intensity of her gaze. "It doesn't have to end like this," she said, voice steady, despite the knot of tension tightening in her chest. Behind her, the others, Jorah, Merrick, Lysa, Tarn, formed a protective semicircle, each poised and ready. The Warden's voice was a low rumble, resonant and hollow. "You think you can defy what binds us all? The tower is eternal. I am its keeper. Without me, chaos would reign." Maybe, but that chaos is freedom, something you lost long ago. Before more could be spoken, a harsh clatter shattered the fragile moment. Garrick, the Warden's lieutenant, charged with a brutal roar, dark armor gleaming under the arcane light. The clang of steel rang out as Jorah met him head-on, muscles coiling with practiced precision. Scars flashed as his blade parried and struck, each movement a calculated act of defense and offense. Tarn moved alongside, his rugged features set in grim determination. With deft hands, he dismantled a nearby trap, a set of glowing sigils designed to ensnare the unwary, neutralizing the threat just in time. The fight was fierce, every strike and block echoing through the chamber's vast emptiness, a desperate battle not just for survival, but for the right to reclaim their lives. Meanwhile, Merrick's illusions wove through the chaos, flickering shadows and light that confused their enemies and shielded their allies. His pale, slender form was almost ghost-like, eyes sharp and calculating despite the mental fragility that haunted him. Beside him, Lysa's gentle voice rose in calming chants, her warm eyes steadying the group's nerves and mending wounds with her rare knowledge of ancient healing arts. As Garrick fell, defeated and gasping, the Warden's control began to waver. The spectral guardians, those chilling, translucent figures that had stalked the corridors for so long, started to flicker and dissolve, their cold blue light dimming into motes of fading energy that drifted away like ash on a breeze. The oppressive weight that had hung over the crew since their arrival in Moonfall Tower lifted incrementally, subtle but undeniable.
The chamber's heavy silence was broken only by the labored breaths of the survivors and the soft rustle of loose stones settling. Kaylin's gaze swept over her weary companions, the lines of exhaustion and pain etched deep on their faces. "We're not bound by this place anymore," she said quietly, voice thick with tired hope. "We'll make our own fate beyond these walls." Outside the core, through cracks in the ancient stone, a cool breeze stirred, fresh and uncertain, carrying with it the whisper of a world waiting beyond the tower's shadow. But beneath that hope lingered the question none dared voice aloud. What awaited them outside this collapsing prison? Would freedom bring salvation, or a new kind of captivity? The Warden's fall marked the end of one chapter of their ordeal, but the dawn of another. A journey into the unknown, where trust, courage, and the scars born within would be their only guides. Kaylin turned away from the fading shadows of the core, her sharp eyes scanning the path ahead. The tower might no longer hold them, but the chains they carried within would not be so easily broken. As the first faint light of dawn crept into the chamber, the survivors steeled themselves to face whatever came next, scarred, transformed, but unbroken. "Let's finish this," Jorah said, his voice low but resolute, stepping beside Kaylin. Merrick's illusions shimmered softly, no longer weapons of deception, but symbols of hope. Lysa and Tarn moved to their sides, a quiet, unspoken bond linking them all. The Moonfall Tower's oppressive reign was ending, but the true test of their redemption was only just beginning.
Chapter 17, Dawn's Edge. The first whispers of dawn crept across the horizon, pale fingers of light brushing the endless void beneath the Moonfall Tower, now nearly motionless in its ceaseless descent. Within the dim refuge carved out in the bowels of the ancient prison, the crew gathered, each face etched with exhaustion, scars, and an unyielding fire that refused to be snuffed out by despair. Kaylin stood by the narrow window slit, her lean frame silhouetted against the faint glow. Her dark hair clung damply to her forehead, sharp eyes scanning the horizon with a wariness born of countless betrayals and losses. The tower's endless fall had worn her down, but never broken her spirit. Memories, fractured and fragile, flickered in her mind like dying embers. Each fragment she grasped was a victory, a piece stolen back from the void that threatened to consume her identity each dawn. She clenched her fists, feeling the weight of the past pressing against her, yet also the promise of redemption that had pushed her forward all this time. Behind her, the sound of steel against stone punctuated the heavy silence. Jorah, the stoic warrior, knelt by the fire, methodically sharpening his blade. The scrape was sharp and steady, echoing faintly through the chamber. His tall, muscular frame was marked by scars, each one a testament to battles fought and comrades lost. Yet beneath the weathered exterior, something new stirred, a quiet acceptance and renewed purpose. The burden of his lost honor had long weighed upon his shoulders, but now, with each precise stroke of his blade, he reaffirmed his vow to protect the innocent prisoners who had come to rely on him. In this final hour, he was no longer the fallen knight haunted by failure. He was their shield and steadfast guardian. Across the room, Merrick sat cross-legged on the cold stone floor, eyes closed, his slender fingers weaving subtle illusions of soft light and warmth that flickered like candle flames. His pale face was drawn tight with concentration, the tremor in his hands betraying the fragility of his mind. The dark, arcane magic that had fractured his identity lingered still, threatening to unravel him. But tonight, fortified by the trust he had found in the crew, he fought back. His illusions created a fragile cocoon of hope,
a fragile balm against the encroaching dread of the memory reset. Every breath he took was a battle, every heartbeat a defiant promise to reclaim the clarity that had once been his. Lisa moved quietly among them, her soft features and warm eyes offering comfort and reassurance. The healer's practical clothing bore the smudges and wear of many long hours tending to wounds both physical and emotional. She knelt beside Tarn, the gruff mechanic, whose broad shoulders and rugged beard contrasted sharply with her gentle presence. Tarn was hunched over a set of crude tools, meticulously preparing their equipment for the final push. His pragmatic loyalty had been a steady anchor in the turbulent sea of the tower's shifting dangers. In the air was thick with anticipation as the crew assembled around a roughly drawn map. The faint glow of dawn stretched across their faces, casting long shadows that mingled with the flickering light from Merrick's illusions. Kaylin's voice was low but unwavering as she outlined the plan, the desperate, daring bid to break free from the tower's confines before the reset could claim them once more. "Time is slipping," she said, her eyes burning with determination. "We've held on this long because we refused to let the tower define us. Now we end this, together." Jorah nodded silently, his gaze meeting hers with a calm strength that steadied the group. Merrick's illusion shimmered brighter, weaving an unspoken promise of protection. Lisa's hands rested briefly on Kaylin's arm, a small gesture of solidarity that spoke volumes. Outside, the tower groaned faintly, its arcane mechanisms humming low like a heartbeat nearing its final beat. The memory reset loomed like a shadow over their fragile hope, threatening to erase their very souls. But for the first time since their imprisonment began, the crew faced the edge of dawn, not with fear, but with fierce resolution. As they prepared to move, Kaylin paused, her mind tracing the twisted path that had brought her here. From a reckless thief betrayed and broken to a leader forged in fire and shadow. She thought of the friends who had fallen, the wounds that would never fully heal, and the redemption still just out of reach. But with dawn's edge gilding the horizon, she felt something rare and precious: hope. The final push was about to begin. The chains that bound them, both physical and psychological, would be tested one last time. And as the first true light of day threatened to burn away the remnants of memory, the crew stepped forward, united and unbroken, toward the uncertain freedom that awaited beyond the tower's iron grasp. The story was far from over. In this fragile moment between night and day, between memory and oblivion, they chose to fight, not just for survival, but for the chance to reclaim who they were and who they might yet become.
Chapter 18. Emergence. The air was thick with a cold dampness that seeped through the cracks in the ancient stone walls as Kaylin pressed her shoulder against the rusted gate. It groaned, a sound rusty and reluctant, as if the tower itself resented the breach. Sweat stung her eyes, her breath ragged from the exertion, but she didn't relent. Behind her, the others waited, their bodies slumped, but their spirits alight with a desperate hope. "Almost there," she whispered, voice hoarse yet unwavering. Jorah stood close by, his tall frame a sentinel carved from scars and resolve. His hand never left the hilt of his sword, knuckles white with grip. The cold wind that slipped through the widening gap bit at his skin, a bitter reminder that beyond this gate lay the unknown. Freedom, yes, but also untamed wilderness, dangers uncharted by any of them. His eyes scanned the darkness below, muscles coiling in readiness to protect the fragile hope they carried. Merrick hovered near the edge of the light, pale and fragile, as if the effort to maintain his illusions drained the last of his strength. His fingers danced in the air, casting wavering shadows across their weary faces.
The flickering glow illuminated the lines of fatigue worn deep into their features, the haunted eyes that carried the weight of forgotten memories and fractured identities. For a moment, the group was united not just by circumstance, but by the fragile clarity that Merrick's magic had conjured, a brief shining beacon in the oppressive darkness. "It's more than just escape," Merrick murmured, voice trembling. "It's a beginning." Lisa moved among them with gentle purpose, her soft hands tracing wounds that told stories more profound than words could capture. Her warm eyes met each gaze with unspoken encouragement, a quiet promise that healing was possible even after the deepest of traumas. Tarn lingered near the rear, his broad shoulders hunched as he secured the path behind them with practiced efficiency, the clink of his tools a steady rhythm that echoed faintly in the silence. The gate finally gave way with a final shuddering creak, falling open to reveal the vast expanse beneath the Moonfall Tower, a wilderness cloaked in shadow and mist, the first faint hints of a hidden dawn brushing the horizon. The air here was sharper, tinged with the scent of earth and freedom, but also carrying the weight of uncertainty. Step by step, the prisoners descended, their footsteps tentative but resolute. Each footfall was a silent promise to themselves and each other to remember, to reclaim, to rebuild. The chains that had bound their bodies and memories within the tower's relentless cycle were broken, but the scars remained, etched into flesh and soul alike. Kalen's sharp eyes absorbed every detail, the twisted roots breaking through cracked stones, the distant call of unseen creatures, the brittle silence that followed their escape. Her mind raced with plans and fears, but for once the cacophony of doubt was drowned out by a fierce, pulsing hope. Jorah's armor, battered yet unyielding, caught the dim light as he turned to face the group, his voice low but steady. "We are free, but freedom is a battle, not a gift. We fight not just for our lives, but for who we will become." Merrick's illusions flickered and danced around them, no longer tools of deception, but symbols of possibility, light born from shadow, transformation from fracture. His green eyes met Kalen's, a silent vow passing between them. Lisa's hands worked swiftly, tending to a fresh wound on Tarn's forearm. She said softly, "We carry their stories with us, not as chains, but as lessons." Tarn grunted, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his rugged face. "And we make new ones." As the tower's shadow receded above, the group paused on the edge of the unknown. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers and mysteries beyond the tower's oppressive walls. Yet in that moment, beneath the fading night and the slowly brightening sky, they were more than prisoners. They were survivors, bearing the fragile spark of redemption and the first breath of freedom. Kalen glanced back once more, the towering silhouette of the Moonfall Tower looming like a dark monument to the past. Then she turned forward, stepping into the wilderness with a heart both heavy and hopeful, ready to face the uncertain dawn. "This is only the beginning," she said, voice steady as the wind that carried it away. And with that, they disappeared into the growing light, leaving behind the chains of the Moonfall Tower, but carrying its lessons deep within their souls. The dawn crept closer, not as a harbinger of erasure, but as a witness to their emergence, scarred, transformed, and free.
Chapter 19: Scars and New Beginnings. The sky was a muted canvas of gray, the first hints of dawn spreading thin and hesitant across the horizon. By the flickering light of a modest campfire, Kalen sat alone, her sharp eyes fixed on the dancing flames. The smoke curled upward, carrying with it memories she could barely grasp, fragments of a past she had fought so hard to reclaim, yet which still slipped like sand through her fingers. The tower was behind them, its shadow lingering in their minds, but the scars it left were etched deeper than any physical wound. Her fingers absently traced the faint scars on her wrist, remnants of chains that no longer bound her body, yet still weighed heavily on her soul. She inhaled deeply, the crisp air stinging her lungs, and for a moment allowed herself to feel the full weight of guilt, the betrayals, the losses, the impulsive decisions that cost lives. Yet beneath the sorrow flickered a fragile ember of hope. They had escaped the endless fall, the cruel reset that had threatened to erase their very selves. That was no small victory. Kalen's thoughts were interrupted by the soft crunch of footsteps on dry leaves. Jorah approached, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim light. His weathered expression was softer now, the usual stoicism giving way to something warmer. He carried a wooden staff fashioned into the rough shape of a sword, its grain worn smooth from use. "You awake, Kalen?" he asked quietly, settling down beside her. She nodded, managing a faint smile. "More awake than ever." He chuckled softly, the sound low and genuine. "Good. I've been training." She glanced at the wooden sword, then back at him. "Training? For what? We're free." Jorah's gaze drifted to the horizon where light began to bleed into the sky. "Freedom isn't just walking away, it's knowing who you are without the chains. For me, that means reclaiming the honor I lost. I'm done running from what I was." His voice was steady, resolute. Kalen studied him, the scars that mapped his body, the quiet strength that had kept them all alive. "I'm glad you're here, Jorah." He nodded, then looked at the fire. "We all carry scars, Kalen, some visible, some hidden. But we have to learn to live with them, or they'll be our undoing." Meanwhile, not far from the fire, Merrick sat cross-legged atop a mossy rock, his pale fingers gently flexing as Lysa knelt beside him. The healer's warm eyes studied the faint wound on his hand, a jagged cut from a recent skirmish. Her touch was gentle, steadying the restless energy that sometimes flickered in his piercing green eyes. "You're improving," she said softly. "The fractures in your mind, less frequent." Merrick gave a small, almost shy smile. "I think it's because I'm not alone anymore. Your presence, it helps." Lysa smiled back, the hope in her gaze a balm to the broken magician's soul. "We're all healing, in our own way. The tower's shadows are long, but they don't have to define us." Nearby, Tarn and Lysa worked side by side, their hands busy repairing the battered shelter they had cobbled together from salvaged materials. Tarn's broad shoulders moved with practiced efficiency, tightening ropes and securing wooden beams, while Lysa arranged patches of cloth and canvas with careful precision. "You're getting better at this," Lysa remarked, glancing at the sturdy structure taking shape. Tarn grunted an acknowledgement. "Had to learn fast. Didn't want to die out here." "None of us did," Lysa replied, her voice steady but warm. The quiet rustle of leaves and distant bird calls filled the air, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the tower they had fled. Yet even in freedom, the uncertainty of what lay ahead pressed down on them. They had escaped physical chains, but now faced the far more daunting task of rebuilding fractured identities and uncertain futures. That evening, the group gathered around the fire, the flickering flames casting long shadows across their weary faces. Kalen rose to speak, her voice steady though laced with emotion. "We made it out. Against all odds, we're free. But freedom isn't the end of our story. It's the beginning. We each have scars, visible
and invisible, and we have to decide what those scars mean. Do they break us, or do they make us stronger? Jorah stepped forward, his wooden sword resting lightly on his shoulder. I choose to fight for something more than honor lost, for those who can't fight for themselves. Merrick's eyes gleamed with newfound clarity. I will face the darkness within me with all of you by my side. Lysa and Tarn exchanged a glance, their unspoken agreement a foundation of trust and hope. Kaelin's gaze swept over the group, the weight of leadership settling comfortably upon her shoulders for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Then let's start building a future worthy of this second chance, together. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the cool night air as the survivors sat closer, drawing strength from one another. The Moonfall Tower's shadow remained behind them, a dark memory, a symbol of control and loss, but ahead lay the unknown, raw and uncharted. And in that uncertainty, there was hope.
Chapter 20. Echoes Beyond the Tower. The wind carried a chill that bit through layers of worn fabric and bruised skin as Kaelin stood at the edge of the ridge, her sharp eyes scanning the valley below. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the scattered settlements that dotted the landscape, like scattered jewels beneath a darkening sky. It was a place both foreign and familiar, a world that was theirs now, yet still held the echoes of the prison tower's fall. Beside her, Jorah's tall frame was rigid, muscles coiled in constant readiness as his gaze followed hers. Merrick lingered slightly behind, his pale fingers nervously tracing patterns in the dirt, the weight of his fractured mind momentarily still in the face of such a tangible horizon. "Look," Kaelin whispered, her sharp eyes softening, as well as a bittersweet ache. "They've survived too!" From the valley, small groups of figures emerged cautiously from the shadows of broken buildings and thickets. Their faces bore the marks of loss and hardship, yet flickering with the fragile flame of hope. Survivors of the Moonfall Tower's curse, like them, scattered across the lands, each carrying their own broken pieces of identity and memory. Lysa moved through the communal hall of a nearby settlement, her soft features illuminated by the gentle glow of candlelight and healing magic. Her hands hovered over a group of weary survivors, channeling a faint energy that seeped into battered bodies and bruised spirits. The murmurs around her were tentative prayers, hopes whispered against the long shadow of the tower's power. Tarn, broad-shouldered and rugged, crouched over a mechanical contraption, a device salvaged from the twisted fragments of the tower itself. With careful, practiced movements, he coaxed the gears and arcane mechanisms back to life, the soft click and whir of machinery cutting through the heavy silence. Around him, the survivors exchanged glances filled with cautious optimism, as if the faintest spark of possibility was enough to kindle a new dawn. Night deepened, drawing Kaelin and Merrick to a quiet spot near a crackling campfire. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows across their faces, illuminating the weariness etched into their features. They spoke in low tones, voices blending with the crackle and pop of burning wood. "My memories, they still slip away like smoke," Merrick confessed, eyes fixed on the fire's unpredictable dance. "Fragments that vanish before I can grasp them." Kaelin nodded, her sharp eyes softening. "We carry ghosts in us, pieces of who we were, who we might have been, but that doesn't mean we're lost." The silence between them was heavy with unspoken fears and a tentative trust that had taken root through shared trials. Here, beneath the vast canopy of stars, they allowed themselves a moment's peace. Meanwhile, Jorah led a small group through the dense forest bordering the settlements. His senses were heightened, every rustle and whisper a potential threat.
The spectral echoes that once haunted the tower now seemed to ripple through the trees, a chilling reminder that escape from the Moonfall Tower did not mean freedom from its influence. "We're not done yet," Jorah murmured, voice low but resolute. "The past clings to us, but it won't break us." As dawn approached, the survivors gathered at the heart of the valley, the fragile bonds forged in captivity now strengthened by shared purpose and understanding. They exchanged stories, knowledge, and resources, a mosaic of broken pasts pieced together in the hope of a future reclaimed. Yet beneath the surface of renewed hope lay the stark truth. The tower's curse was not confined to its falling walls. Its power seeped beyond, touching lives and memories in ways they had yet to comprehend. The journey towards redemption and transformation stretched before them, a path fraught with uncertainty, but lit by the unyielding resilience of those who refused to be defined by their chains. Kaylin's gaze lifted to the horizon, where the first light of dawn bled into the sky. Though scarred and incomplete, they were free, and that freedom was a beginning, not an end. "We move forward," she said, voice steady. "Together." And with that, the echoes of the Moonfall Tower whispered their final secrets into the morning breeze, fading, but never forgotten.
Chapter 21. Trust Reforged. The forest around them was a living, breathing entity, its shadows a shifting veil beneath the bruised twilight sky. The Moonfall Tower was now far behind, its looming silhouette swallowed by the horizon, but its memory lingered like a ghost in each prisoner's heart. Kaylin crouched near the flickering campfire, her sharp eyes scanning the darkening woods as the others settled uneasily around the small circle of light. The air was thick with tension, the distant howls of unseen creatures threading through the trees like a warning. She felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her shoulders heavier than ever. Trust was a fragile thing here, broken and brittle after all they'd endured. Yet it was the only thread that could weave them into a force strong enough to survive what lay ahead. Jorah sat opposite her, his tall frame coiled like a steel trap, muscles taut beneath scars that told stories of battles long past. His gaze was steady but unreadable, a wall Kaylin had learned to respect and sometimes resent. "We can't afford this," Kaylin said quietly, breaking the silence that had thickened between them. "The crew needs to move as one, not fractured by mistrusts or old grudges." Jorah's eyes flickered, a storm briefly crossing his weathered face. "Words are easy. Trust is earned." "Then we better start earning it," Kaylin replied, her voice low but fierce. "Because out here, alone, we're sitting ducks." The exchange hung heavy in the night air, raw and honest. Their history was a tangled web of betrayal and survival, but beneath it all lay a grudging respect, forged in the crucible of shared hardship. Nearby, Merrick sat cross-legged, his pale fingers dancing through the air as he conjured delicate illusions, shimmering birds that fluttered just beyond reach, casting playful shadows that flickered against the trees. His green eyes sparkled with mischief and something softer, a fragile hope that seemed to spread like wildfire among the weary group. "Look," Lisa whispered to Tarn, pointing as the illusions cast a protective cloak of shifting lights around the camp. "He's found a way to shield us," Tarn grunted, his broad shoulders relaxing slightly. "It's not much, but it'll buy us time." Time was their most precious commodity now. Suddenly, the night erupted in chaos. Spectral figures, ghostly remnants of the tower's cruel guardians, emerged from the mist, their hollow eyes glowing with malevolent intent. The crew sprang into action, instincts sharpened by countless trials. Kaylin's dagger flashed as she darted forward, while Jorah's sword sang a deadly song through the air, each strike a testament to his unwavering resolve.
Merrick's illusions twisted and flickered, confusing the attackers with bursts of light and shadow, buying precious seconds for the crew to regroup. Lisa's hands glowed softly as she wove healing magic through the fray, mending wounds and bolstering spirits. The battle was fierce but brief. Together, they pushed back the spectral threat, their combined strength a beacon of defiance against the darkness. As the echoes of conflict faded, Kaelin met Jorah's gaze once more, the unspoken acknowledgement of their shared burden passing between them. The wounds they carried, both seen and unseen, were far from healed. But in this moment, their trust was reforged, tempered by fire and necessity. "We move at first light," Kaelin declared, her voice steady. "Together. No more fractures, no more doubts." Jorah nodded, his expression softening. For the crew. For freedom. The fire crackled, shadows dancing around them as the night deepened. Somewhere beyond the trees, the world waited, a realm of uncertainty and promise. But here, in the fragile circle of light and trust, the misfit crew found their strength renewed. And as the stars wheeled overhead, a quiet hope blossomed. A hope that this time the chains of the Moonfall Tower might finally be broken. Kaelin's mind raced as she lay unasleep beneath the canopy of leaves, the weight of the coming day pressing down on her. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but the hardest battle was mending the fractures within their own ranks. She thought of Jorah's steadfastness, Merrick's delicate brilliance, Lys's gentle strength, and Tarn's unwavering loyalty. Each of them was a shard of a broken mirror, reflecting pain, guilt, and hope in equal measure. Their survival depended on more than steel and magic. It depended on trust, and trust would not be given lightly. The dawn was coming, and with it, the next chapter of their fight for freedom.
Chapter 22. Chains broken, souls freed. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, brushing the sky with gentle strokes of gold and violet. Where once the Moonfall Tower had cast its long, oppressive shadow, now only the scattered ruins remained. Twisted metal, shattered stone, and smoldering embers of arcane machinery. The oppressive weight that had bound Kaelin and her companions dissolved with the rising sun, leaving behind a silence so profound it pressed against their skin like the breath of a new world. Kaelin stood at the crest of a gentle rise, her lean frame silhouetted against the awakening sky. Her dark hair, still tangled from the trials of the night, fluttered in the cool breeze, fingers tightening around the leather strap slung across her chest, a remnant of a past she fought to reclaim. She scanned the horizon with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The air smelled fresh, tinged with wild grass and distant pine. It was freedom, tangible and real. Around her, the group gathered slowly, tentative smiles breaking through exhaustion and the shadows of their memories. Jorah appeared beside her, tall and imposing even in moments of quiet. His scars caught the morning light, a testament to battles fought both without and within. His weathered expression softened as he met Kaelin's gaze, an unspoken acknowledgement of the journey they had endured together. Behind them, Merrick crouched by a small fire, his pale fingers weaving delicate illusions that flickered like stars. The shimmering lights danced across the rocks and flickered in his piercing green eyes, a fragile beacon of hope and whimsy in a world that had grown harsh and unforgiving. "Look," he murmured, drawing Jorah's attention. "Even in this broken place, beauty remains." Jorah allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. "We will carry it with us, then." Lysa moved among them, her soft features illuminated by the firelight as she tended to Tarn's bruised arm. Her hands were steady and gentle, a balm not only to physical wounds, but to the frayed nerves binding the group. Tarn, broad-shouldered and rugged, grunted softly in response, but met her gaze with gratitude. The wild landscape stretched beyond them.
untamed and full of unknown dangers, yet alive with possibility. "We have survived the tower," she said softly, "but now we must survive what lies beyond." Kaylin stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the tremor of uncertainty beneath her. "We broke its chains. It can't reset us anymore. But this is only the beginning. Our pasts, our mistakes, they don't vanish with the tower's fall. We have to live with them, learn from them, together." A hush fell over the group as the truth settled in. The Moonfall Tower's descent had ended, but their descent into a life reclaimed was only starting. The scars they bore were real and deep, etched into flesh and soul alike. Yet within those scars lay the seeds of transformation, painful, vital, and necessary. Kaylin looked back once more at the ruins behind them. The towering prison with its cruel mechanisms and memory-stealing curse was no longer a shackle, but a fading shadow. It was a symbol of control overcome, a testament to their resilience. "We are not who we were," she said, voice rising with fierce hope. "We are more." Jorah nodded, stepping beside her. "And we will stand strong, for each other and for the future we choose." Merrick's illusions flickered brighter, casting shimmering light over their faces, now marked by resolve rather than fear. Tarn hefted his heavy frame to his feet, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Lysa's warm smile was the quiet promise of healing and hope. Together, they moved forward, scarred, transformed, and free. But freedom, they knew, was a journey, not a destination. The chains were broken, but the souls of the survivors would carry the weight of their pasts as they stepped into the uncertain dawn. And in that uncertain light, hope pulsed fiercely, an ember blazing against the darkness. As the sun climbed higher, the Moonfall Tower's shadow slipped away, and with it, the grip of a prison that sought to erase their very selves. Their redemption was incomplete, their scars still raw, but their spirits unbound. Kaylin's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement at the edge of the tree line, a subtle reminder that the world was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike. She exchanged a glance with Jorah and Merrick, a silent question hanging between them. Could they hold on to their reclaimed identities? Could they build new lives from the fragments left behind? The answers lay ahead, in the uncertain wilderness beyond the tower's fall. But for now, they breathed the free air, felt the sun's warmth on their skin, and took the first steps towards a future of their own making. The chains were broken, the souls were freed, and the story was far from over.